excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the states in Nigeria. I want to apologize for my voice right now, but guys, you know what? The show must continue. And today, President Tinubu's replacement of Nigerian service chiefs has set tongues wagging across the nation. Is this a bold step towards reform or a reaction to deepening cracks within our security ranks is what I'm bringing to fore. And all of those questions will be answered by the right person, that bringing on the show today. Again, I welcome you to another interesting edition of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, your chief host, the executive producer of this show. My name remains Atanda-Owo. I think it's important for us to hear what on this day initial segment has for us. And when I return, I'll give my 2 cents on it. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. My takeaway from On This Day in History segment today is just so disturbing that on this day in history, in 1991, to be precise, when in Kanu, Kanu airport bomb that blast still reflects, Nigerians' ongoing battles with terrorism and insecurity for almost 4 decades now. It has become a culture. We must keep it real as much as we can. This stresses the urgent and modern need for stronger intelligence, safety, national counter-terrorism, and coordination overall with all that concerns security in our country. And today that we are talking about it since 1991, I'm asking myself, what has changed, really? You find the answer for yourself. All right, it's important for me to get quick messages from my sponsors, those who have put me on this platform. And when I return, I dive straight to the usual attack. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. On October 24th, 2025, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu announced the shocking reshuffle of Nigerians' military leadership, removing several service chiefs and installing new commanders. The presidency says that this is to strengthen our security architecture, but the move comes days after reports of a foiled-up opposed coup and the arrest of some officers, and that timing has sparked a fierce national debate about whether this is about better security or regime survival. General Christopher Musa, CDS, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, and others named in coverage as rooted out, and late General Olufemi Oluyede appointed Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Shaib, Chief of Army Staff, Vice Marshal S.K. Anake, Chief of Air Staff, and of course the Rear Admiral Abbas, Chief of Naval Staff. And on the live show today, I will be having my real talk about, around President Tinubu's, replacement of Nigerian service chiefs, which raises debates over motives, timing, and impact, raising questions about security reforms, political control, and military professionalism, and the future of national stability is all that will be discussed on this live show today. So before we delve into real talk, I think it's important for me to play the guest profile of my guest, and when I return, I will be speaking with him. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. Let me use this opportunity to quickly usher in my guest, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, security and intelligence expert. It's a pleasure to have you again on Real Talk with Kike today. I apologize on my voice right now. I've lost my voice. I have flu, I have cough, I have all sorts going on right now with me. But many thanks, for creating time to lend your voice on issues that affect us. How are you doing today, sir? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much, sir. So let's dive straight to the issue at hand, because I know many Nigerians are asking, was this reshuffle driven by performance concerns within the armed forces, or is just the political fears following rumors of coup, during former President Buhari's administration? I remember vividly that we had changes in the heads of our defense staff. From your own experience and perspective, what are the telltale signs that a shake-up is operational versus political? What's your take on this?
Okay, beautiful question. Let's start with the apparent, what is obvious, and then maybe we can now move into other areas. What is obvious is what was stated by the presidency. They stated that the change was to strengthen national security architecture, to introduce new blood in their work, and then, of course, to strengthen national security architecture. In another statement, they also said to enhance loyalty within the military establishment. However, beyond these very obvious statements, the other indicators that would tell us maybe there is a little bit more beyond what the presidency stated is, number one, the rumored coup plot. Of course, it's a little bit beyond rumors, because as we're talking, we believe that there are between 16 to 20 military personnel that have been arrested. Because they are yet to be charged, and because there are both open and confidential information suggesting that they were arrested because of the coup plot, it has led to continuous speculation regarding the coup plot. The second indicator is the cancellation of the National Day parade on October 1. Of course, the rumor mill associated the arrest of this officer that I've mentioned with a plan, as it were, that they wanted to execute on October 1st, which was, according to the rumor mills, why that particular celebration was cancelled. Recall that other aspects of the October 1 celebration were held, the Muslim prayer, the Christian prayer, and several other components of the celebration did hold apart from that particular one. Number 3 indicator is the change itself and the fact that it seemed to suggest, for instance, that some considerations beyond professionalism were included in the change. One example is the person who is now the Chief of Defense Staff, who incidentally turns out to be of the same ethnic affinity like the president. The person who is also occupying, who is now the Chief of Army Staff, also, even though from a northern state, there are suggestions that there is ethnic affinity, because from that state there are Yoruba-speaking component of that state. Now, whether that is true or not, the argument is that because of the coup plot, there is a need, for instance, for the president to reinstill loyalty and ensure, for instance, that there is absolute control within the military class. When you tie down to this, to the fact that the election season is about to commence, or it has actually commenced, signposts are everywhere suggesting that the 2027 elections have already started. It appears the president himself is interested in ensuring that nothing affects that political cycle. I want to, before I end this part of the conversation, I want to remind us that in this spot republic, we're almost about 6 years thereabout of our foray into democratic governance, and nobody, including the president, I'm sure, would want that foray to be interrupted by a military coup. So it appears that some of the changes he did was to ensure that that doesn't happen and to allow him to continue with the reforms that he is embarking upon so far.
All right, many thanks for that insight. But the announcement came shortly after reports of a coup plot and the arrest of some officers, and the government don't want to admit there was a coup or there was a coup plot, according to intelligence given, and perhaps because of other successful coups in other parts of Africa in the last 2 years, to be precise. And in your own assessment, does this timing suggest a defensive move by the presidency, or could it just truly be coincidental? I know that you have given your own perspective on the issue at hand, but at least 2,266 people killed by bandits or insurgency in Q1 of 2025, suppressing that total of the total for all of 2024, according to reports that I read before coming on set. And the sharp rise in violence in Plateau and Benue states, that I felt that I need to bring to fore when it comes to June 13 and 14 in 2025, about 150 people killed in an assault on Yewate village, Benue State. How does this presidency now explain to Nigerians who will be disappointed that no shake-up were done when lives were lost in those states? Now, is this the next thing, or is just about the political will, so to speak? What's your take on this thus far?
It's very obvious that what is more important to the presidency at this stage is the political allegiance, and not necessarily any other thing. That's not in any way to suggest that the new service chiefs are not professionals. In fact, I think we're extremely lucky in the profile of the persons who are now the service chiefs. They appear to be all professionals who have field experience. They've also had both national and international experience in different aspects of military and defense strategy and tactical as well as operational activities. So to that extent, I don't think we can fault the president in the selection of the individuals. But like you rightly said, there have been instances in the past where we expect some form of reshuffle, or even holding to account some of the persons who are occupying leadership position within the security sector. But we didn't see that. I know you give examples from Benue and Plateau, But there are even more worrisome and deadly examples in Borno State, where military formations are being attacked. Just 3 days ago, 3 military formations were attacked simultaneously by one group in Borno and Yobe State. I want you to picture what it would take for one group to now simultaneously, on the same day, attack 3 military formations. We're not talking of attacking a church or a mosque. We're talking of a military formation with all the security deployment in those places. Yet they attacked, and to a large extent, they were successful, even though the military told us they killed about 50 of the attackers. But we also saw videos from the attackers showing how they burned military assets there. Before then, in places like Zamfara, in Kebbi, in Sokoto, in almost everywhere in North Central, Kwara State, Niger State, Nasarawa State, we've seen instances of attacks that have shaken, the bones of Nigerians and even the international community. Yet we didn't see the changes. So that's number two. Number three is the position of the military within the national security enterprise. The military represents just about 4 out of the 29 ministries, departments, and agencies that we have within the national security enterprise. Even though the military is probably the most important in terms of strength and equipment repository, but there is no way it can do the work of the entire national security enterprise. I'll give you an example. Our challenge in Nigeria at the moment is one of internal security. The mandate of the military, as specified in Section 217 of the Constitution, out of the 4 or 5 elements, there only one has internal security, and even that one, it says supporting civil organizations in internal security. So the primary responsibility of the military is not internal security. And if our challenge is one of internal security, one would expect that if a change is being made, it would be the organizations that have responsibility for internal security and not the military that is not primarily responsible. So clearly, the objective is not necessarily because of the security situation, but most likely because of other political considerations, including regime protection. We can't rule that away until the persons who are currently in detention, the military persons in detention, until they are charged, maybe in a court martial, until we know the charges against them. I think the rumor mill will continue to spin, and the suggestion will continue to be that it was a military coup attempt.
Many thanks for that submission right there. But, we keep complaining about the security architecture of our country. Let's keep it real on this platform. And some say that it's because of the round peg in square holes. But do we have measures, sir, to ensure that military promotions and appointments are merit-based rather than politically influenced? I like that earlier you were talking about the new appointees that, that they are equipped, they are experienced and the likes and all of that. While I understand your submission on that, and I respect it because you are one of the few people that I know I can take the word to the bank and we'll meet it like that. But with what you have shared thus far, do you think many people who are watching us right now feel the same way? That's my first question to you. My second question to you again is because you have spoken about interagency coordinations as a weak point in our security system. You've been on this platform a couple of times, and we are grateful for you for always granting us that audience. But do you see this leadership change as an opportunity to fix those structural gaps, or could it just be deepening in terms of rivalry amongst agencies? What's your take on this quickly before we go on a break?
Okay, the first part of the question, whether I feel that the leadership of the current leadership within the national security enterprise, effective and efficient, whether they are round holes and round pegs and round holes. I think the measure of that would be to look at where we are, and of course where we're coming from in terms of the metrics, the numbers. At the moment, as at the end of September, about 8,800 Nigerians have been killed. That's extremely concerning. Globally, only countries like maybe Sudan at the moment, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, maybe Israel, and Gaza, that you'll be recording such numbers, 8,000 in a year. And remember, this is just at the end of September, the 9th month of the year. It's likely that as we continue, the number would reach 10,000. That is extremely alarming. And I do hope our political class will take note of that. In terms of abduction, about 6,000 persons have been abducted as at the end of September. Again, that is extremely disturbing. When you compare it with last year, what we had for last year was near about that. So it means, for instance, that we're not making any progress in that regard. What was obvious for me, and that's why this change is a little bit surprising, we saw a dip. The numbers started reducing as from June, May and June this year. We started the year with about 1,000, average of 1,000 monthly. It peaked around March and April at 1,300. But then since then, it started reducing. As at September, the figure for the monthly figure was 580, thereabouts. So clearly, whatever the then security leadership were doing was beginning to work. So for these new ones, which takes me to the second part of your question regarding synergy and interoperability, the immediate past service chiefs, I had the good fortune of having looked at their objectives, the operational objectives that they had put in place, the strategic objectives, the operational objectives, and in each of them, you had interoperability, which is another word for synergy. So I'm hoping that these new ones will pick up from where the immediate past ones had left. In other words, yes, there may be one or two areas where they would need to introduce new things, but with regards to synergy and interoperability, I would plead with them to just take the template that has been introduced by the immediate past one, because it was working. Why change it if it was working? So to that extent, I think the immediate past one deserve that commendation, and these new ones who have come in would build upon it. The other comment that I would like to make is this new service chiefs would have to be screened by the Senate or the National Assembly, as the case may be. Now, we're hoping that during the interaction with the National Assembly, questions around these issues that we're discussing will come up, so that it's not just stamping them, but making sure that we get commitments from them, and not just verbal commitments that would present a roadmap to achieve interoperability, to achieve synergy, and then, of course, core issues that are affecting the military. And I'm sure we'll probably discuss that as we progress in our conversation. But for now, I'm hoping that the Senate would pick these issues up in very clear terms during the interaction they are going to have with them before they endorse them as the new service chiefs.
For all your submission thus far. We'll go on a quick break to get a word from my sponsors. When I return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined the show, we have been discussing, the service chief swap, the reforms, the risk, and of course, the road ahead following President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's sweeping changes in Nigeria's military leadership. And of course, our guest, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, is here, to help us with, to make sense of what this means for national security, for stability and trust in our armed forces. Again, I want to say many thanks, Dr. Adamu, for all that you have shared thus far. And Dr. Adamu is the security and intelligence expert, and we say thank you so much. We do not take your time for granted. Let me use this opportunity to open the phone lines for those who would like to contribute on this show. The number to call is showing on your screen right now. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook, on Real Talk with Kike, and of course on Silverbird platform. So, sir, with all that you have shared thus far, I want to quickly bring forth bandits that were sacked. About 638 bandits were sacked in villages in Zamfara State. I think 725 villages in Zamfara are under bandits' control, if I'm correct. Over 273 people killed and 467 adopted in Zamfara in 2 years. what should the new service chiefs do differently? I ask in pain. Is it to build that trust and communicate effectively with citizens about the ongoing security challenges, or what exactly? Because with the numbers that I've just put out there, Dr. Adamu, what's your take on this?
So the first thing I want to emphasize is that we should not be putting that responsibility on the military alone. Those who designed our constitution and who created the national security enterprise, that's not their intention. They did not intend for the military to have responsibility for internal security. And part of the reason why we're where we are is because we are looking at the military to solve the problem. And I'm not in any way saying that the military cannot contribute to solving the problem. Yes, they can contribute, but they can only do this in tandem together with the other elements within the national security enterprise. I'll give you a very good example. The military is, in all intents and purposes, an instrument of policy implementation. And I'll explain what I mean by that. The military cannot on its own go and do something without the approval of the presidency, as it were. Whatever the military wants to do, let's use Operation Fansanyama, which is in the Northwest. That's the newest operation. Before the military started that, it had to submit a request to the presidency, of course to the National Assembly, and these two elements will have to approve that the military should go ahead and implement that. Now, once that is approved, the tactical and the operational elements, the military is left. It's at the liberty of the military to, carry out those tactical and operational elements. But the operation itself needed to be approved before the military deployed. So I think it's very important for us Nigerians to appreciate this, that the military is operating in a very difficult space where we have put on it a burden that is actually beyond its mandate. I mentioned earlier on that the mandate of the military is spelled out clearly in section 217 of the Constitution. I would also note that yes, that section says the president is at liberty to add any other additional responsibility to the military. Now, if that happens, and which is the case at the moment in Nigeria, where we deploy the military to carry out internal security operations, but they are not doing it alone. No matter, I would add some elements of examples to this. You see, border security as an example. If we use Northwest, there are, I think, about 5 states that have borders with other countries, Niger mostly. And the responsibility for protecting that border is not the responsibility of the military. And it is documented that a significant number of the weapons that are coming into Nigeria are actually coming through those borders. So you see, even if the military consistently kills or arrests these bad guys, as far as weapons continue to flow through those borders, the issue would not be solved. So that's one example. Number two, another example I'll give you, the role of the police. No matter how the military is effective, if the police does not carry out its own responsibility in addressing some of the social issues, the crimes that are going on within the states, the communities, it's not the role of the military to carry out that. And it is those social crimes, those small ones, that now become the big ones that the military will have to be deployed to deal with. Trafficking of weapons, trafficking of drugs, name them. All those things are contributors to the bigger challenge of insurgency and all of that. So point I'm trying to make is, yes, it is the responsibility of the military to support these other organizations, but for them to succeed, it takes us back to your earlier question regarding inter-agency cooperation, collaboration, and coordination. So we're hoping that these new service chiefs will appreciate this. They would, like I did mention, the immediate past service chiefs did very well in terms of encouraging this interoperability in the synergy within the security sector. So these new ones also have the responsibility to continue from where the previous ones, the immediate past ones, left if they are going to succeed. It is not something for them to do alone. They have to work together with all the agencies. And Unfortunately, and I think this is the most difficult part for the military, they don't have control, as it were, over these other agencies. It is the presidency, it is the coordinating elements within the national security architecture, Office of the National Security Advisor, Minister of Police Affairs, Minister of Defense, Minister of Interior. They are the ones that have control. They are the ones who can call to account these other agencies. So the military at best can only point out to say, look, we're seeing these gaps. Because we're seeing these gaps, please help us talk to these other sister agencies to block those gaps. They cannot, for instance, query the Inspector General of Police if they notice a policing gap. So that's the difficulty of the current national security enterprise in Nigeria.
Many thanks for that elaborate submission right there. But let me take us back to history, because on June 21st, 2025, a suicide bomber killed at least 12 people at a fish market in, I think, Konduga or something like that, in Borno State, amongst other terrible reports. If you were to advise, the new Chief of Defense Staff, what 3 immediate priorities should he focus on in the first 100 days to make real impact in this sector? Because I feel that it's important for me to ask you this question in how we can find solution to the issue at hand. Again, I'm sorry I'm asking you double-barrel questions. It's because I'm trying to manage time. That's my first question. My second question is because with recent coups in neighboring countries, Nigeria's own its own stability is under the microscope. What lessons should Nigerians draw from the region, and what proactive steps can the government take to safeguard our democracy thus far?
Okay, I'll probably just answer the question as one. They are related, the two questions. What in terms of what I would advise the Chief of Defense Staff and the service chiefs to focus on, number one is to look at leadership and oversight within the military establishment. The military establishment is a disciplined sector. Without discipline, the military establishment cannot move anywhere. So the first thing they need to do is to ensure that the spirit of leadership that we know the military for is restored. The kind of stories we hear of indiscipline within the military, that needs to stop. Any military that loses discipline, is as good as gone. So that's number one. Of course, the second part is civilian oversight, which answers the second part of your question. They need to, I know they've pledged to civilian oversight. They have committed to it, and the exemplification of that is that they will be going to Senate for confirmation. That is one very clear subjecting themselves to civilian oversight. But beyond that, they need to make sure that in their tactical and operational issues, they also subject themselves to civilian oversight. Earlier on, I gave the example of Operation Fansanyama. They need to make sure that the mandate, the time span for the implementation of that operation is known to the civilian component, which is the National Assembly, because they are the ones who conduct oversight for them. At the moment, I bet you they don't know. It was not shared with them. So that's how civilian oversight is achieved. The second one, which they must address, is the funding constraint within the military. The funding constraint is limiting the ability of the military to do a lot. So they must work with all the stakeholders, starting from the presidency, to the Ministry of Defense, to the Ministry of Finance, to the National Assembly, to the Defense Headquarters itself, and then the various services, to ensure that these funding constraints are addressed, to the best of their ability. The number three is to address corruption and lack of accountability within the military establishment. We shouldn't shy away from it. Corruption still exists, and the best exemplification of that is the number of persons that are being arrested. Not too long ago, a general was arrested with cash that I don't even want to repeat on TV. And we know he was court-martialed, he was found guilty. So they need to introduce stronger accountability measures within the establishment, including in procurement. We're hearing stories that items worth 3 million naira are being budgeted for at 15 million naira and things like that. So that needs to stop. And number 4 is to address the equipment deficit within the military. One of the things I'm hoping that will look at their administration is the issue of the types of vehicles that our military are using, those of them in the front line. Today, a significant number of them are still moving in Hiluxes, soft-skinned vehicles that if anyone with an AK-47 shoots at them, he can easily kill them. You can't have your military moving in soft-skinned vehicles in the front line. That needs to change. Then they must improve staffing and training arrangements. The number of troops that we have, especially those of them at the front line, we need to increase them, given the fact that they are spread across the 36 states of the Federation. They must also, of course, address the training requirements. And I must commend Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for everything he's been trying to do in terms of improving the training institutions for the military and the other security agencies. But their role is to ensure that the curriculum, the training needs, you can't just send somebody to Army Depot, for instance, after 6 months, you now deploy him to the front line, things like that. So they must need to improve staffing and training arrangements. Number 5 is to, I've spoken about corruption, improve accountability and promote transparency. Then they must also improve military-civilian relations. At the moment, the trust deficit between the military and the civilians is extremely high. They must work to reduce that. The civilian would need to see that the ethos of the work of the military is actually to protect them. And once they see that, they will start sharing information with them. They will start supporting them more than what we're seeing at the moment. And then, of course, they must address the welfare conditions of our military at the moment. Some of the welfare issues, rotation is an example. You send somebody to the front line, he stays there up to 4 years, you will never get the best from him. So that issues around welfare, payment of allowances, feeding, kit and clothing, equipment, all of that fall under welfare would have to be improved upon. And then, of course, the types of support and relationship with our international partners. Our international partners are very important, especially in technology transfer. This administration has an objective to improve or increase local production of the equipment need of the military up to 40% by 2027. We can't do that alone. We need our international partners to support us. Training, funding, and even the equipment that we need to buy, sometimes it's from our international partners. So how they go about improving the relationship between us and our international partners will determine their successes. So we are hoping that to see. So these are some of the key core areas, the immediate core areas that I'm hoping they can delve into. If I'm going to pick one out of the 7 or 8 things I've mentioned, I would say is this issue of equipment and training needs for the military, because the military is at war at the moment, and you can't fight a war if you don't have enough equipment. So that's what I would say number 1 they should address.
Well said. Many thanks for all your submission thus far. But this will be my last question to you because of time. I would love you to, give your final words regarding leadership changes, with deeper reforms that are needed in Nigerian security architecture in terms of recruitment, intelligence, funding, or will I say oversight, to just deliver a lasting stability and peace in our country. Because I do not want a situation where I will invite you here again to come and talk about the same thing. And for a man like you, who is well experienced, who is vast, I would love you to at least, throw your own words out there for those who will be listening to want to pick 1 or 2 advices from you to find a better way to just, disrupt the culture of the insecurity in our country.
Okay, in simple terms, is to introduce accountability elements within our security sector. And the 2 arms of government that have that responsibility is the executive arm and then the parliament. I'll quickly talk about the role of the executive arm. When President Bola Tinubu Ahmed was sworn in May 29, one of the first things he did was to institutionalize Executive Order 13. Now, this is about performance measurement for his cabinet. He signed agreement, as it were, with the ministers that specified their responsibility, what they were going to achieve. And he got one of his stellar appointees, one of the most effective and hardworking women that he has in his team, which is Hajia Hadiza Bala Usman, and gave her that responsibility to measure the performance of the ministers. Now, I think the president would need to take those measurements a bit more seriously. The ministers who have been performing under those performance measurements, he should reward them in the carrot and stick approach. Those who have not been performing, he should also penalize them in the manner of the carrot and stick. And that information is available to him because that process has been ongoing since he came to power. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's just to make sure it is implemented fully. With regards to the second arm of government, which is the legislature, it is really through oversight responsibilities. At the moment, the instrument that the legislature is using for oversight is not so effective. Motions are passed, in the Senate, in the House, but the executive is at liberty to listen or not listen to those motions. Oversight visits are conducted, and what we hear about how they are being conducted gives room for improvement. In the developed world, in the US as an example, if the parliament, the Congress is inviting any member of the cabinet, whether security or not, they are literally shivering because the outcome can result in a lot of changes within the government. But here, we don't see that. So the legislature would need to also increase or improve on the instruments it is using for oversight. Now, it's only when we do this that we're likely to see an improvement in our security sector. At the moment, there is no accountability within the security sector. You quoted reports that showed the number of fatalities over 2 years, but I doubt, you are a journalist, I'll urge you to go and find out, has anyone been held accountable for those deaths? I don't think anyone was held accountable for those deaths. So that's what we need to change. Let's start holding those that we give responsibility to protect us, to prevent attacks. If attacks occur, we should have the boldness to hold them to account, to say, why did you allow those attacks to occur? If it's a case of the equipment they need and they don't have those equipment, let's provide those equipments for them. And then again, hold them to account, both operationally and financially. By financial accountability, I spoke about it earlier on, but for me, this is the way to go. If we're going to change the narrative, you don't want to invite me again, then we need to strengthen accountability within the security sector.
Dr. Kabiru Adamu, for all that you have shared thus far. And really, I would love to continue to bring you on this show because I respect your perspective, but I just want a situation where we can always look for a change in the issues, that affect us or that surrounds us, instead of it seeming like a talk shop. But again, indeed, we've had an awesome show. Courtesy you are a resourceful guest, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, Security and Intelligence Expert and CEO of Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited. I must say many thanks again for creating time, to lend your voice on issues that is very important to us, that concerns all of us wherever we are in this country. I want to say thank you so much. I wish you the very best as you continue to navigate the water of security sector, and of course, the very best in wisdom to actually navigate different human behaviors that crosses your path. Thank you so much, Dr. Adamu. On this note, this is where I draw the curtains of the show. Till I come your way on Thursday, remember to catch me live on Inspiration FM tomorrow, your Drive Time Talk Show. Do not mind my voice. I have to continue the work. So guys, I'm hoping that by tomorrow, by the time you hear my voice, my golden voice on my radio program, it will be much better by tomorrow. Again, many thanks to all my viewers, and thank you so much to my resourceful guests. Bye now and remain safe.